Oh, yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We are going to commence this great webinar in about 45 to 60 seconds. We're just waiting for more people to gather, so please stay tuned. A bit of housekeeping. We have a great way for you to ask questions and feedback from the audience, so please leverage the chat area and the feedback area for any questions you might have. Again, we will start in about 30 seconds. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining this wonderful webinar that we have. And today we have a few great people with me to present this. This webinar will focus on how does 8x8 enable you to drive better sales acceleration, accelerate your business by empowering different teams and different aspects of your salespeople, and with great reporting to reach better sales, accelerated, and have full transparency into how you drive customer engagement while driving prospects into pipeline and then obviously into closed one. What we're going to do today is we're going to go through different solution elements of this and really focus on one big one that is available for you whenever you're ready to start adopting it, and we can take it through that today. So why don't we progress? So I'm going to start off while the slide progresses. The sales acceleration from 8x8 is about how we drive end-to-end of functions of the sales teams. When you look at the functions, is one piece of it is the more automatic, more scalable way for you to reach audience. Sometimes lead generation for marketing, or you can refer to it as a sales, telesales, inside sales, SDR, sales development rep. For that, we have a piece of the solution which is focused on designing, reporting, and the ability to scale and reach massive audiences. The second, which we're going to get a lot more deeper today, is about how our virtual office, which is our backbone communication system, is really embedded strongly into your CRM tool, Salesforce, and enables you to take a piece of the high-touch, personalized communication process of the life of a great salesperson, and with that you are able to do that. With that, you're going to be able to do everything that they do in the day-to-day life and enable them to always have proper communication, inbound, outbound, and have real transparency of their activity logging and so forth. Let me introduce myself and my peers. My name is Alon Waks, and I'm a VP of Marketing at 8x8. Very happy to be here. I happen to have two amazing, very smart people with me today. Daryl, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us about what you do, and then tell us what is your favorite Seinfeld moment or episode?
Hi, thanks, Alon. So yeah, I'm Daryl Addington. I'm with 8x8 in Product Management Group, and we're focused on sales users as a main audience for 8x8 products. Happy to be talking to you today. I have a background in contact center and communications. My favorite Seinfeld episode is the episode where Jerry's buying a coat, and he ends up with a suede coat. It's more than he wants to pay. And then he meets Elaine's father, and Elaine's father essentially makes him walk out into the wet, cold New York night while it's sleeting, and Jerry has no choice but to walk through the weather with this suede coat, and he ruins it. And at the end of the episode, he ends up with no suede coat at all, and his neighbor from across the hall has that one and his old leather coat. So typical Seinfeld episode.
Cool. Good one. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Jeff Woodland. I've been doing analytics for longer than I can remember. I think I was actually born doing analytics because I remember graphing budget sheets or budget charts when I was in another industry, and then I kind of walked into software. And then I got into the contact center world, and now I'm doing product management with Daryl, focusing on analytics for salespeople. I think the Seinfeld favorite episode, I mean, there's so many, but the one that I always laugh at is when George becomes a hand model.
Oh, wow.
I just the whole concept of what it takes to be a hand model, and then it just falls on George. I love that episode.
That's a good one. So for me, by the way, guys, we always want to encourage the audience to participate with questions. And if you want to tell us your favorite Seinfeld moment, always good to know. For me, it actually relates to the topic of today. It's the one with Lloyd Braun and George sitting in the garage of Frank Costanza trying to sell very old computers, and they have a competition about who sells more. And the funny thing is that George is behind because Lloyd Braun is like ringing the bell saying sold, sold, sold. But you can't know that as Frank, the manager, wasn't able to see that his telephone line wasn't even connected. So he had lack of ability to understand how effective communication actually drove selling, because the salespeople just told them they sold, but he couldn't see any communication reporting. So that's my favorite one, obviously well tied to the topic. So why don't we progress to the next slide and start talking really about what depth we can do today. As I mentioned while we were progressing the slide, to enable full funnel, full pipeline progression, we are able to provide to customers like you this automation piece, which is driven by a component called Easy Contact Now, that enables you to do predictive outbound and reach for more automated, efficient, reaching telemarketing and telesales audiences by having this great capability. Now, the second piece of the component is the one we're going to deep dive into today, which is, we are calling that virtual office for Salesforce, where it can enable you to, through your CRM capability, have everything embedded into it to drive communication as a business process while having great analytics as well, helping you to progress inside sales, SDRs, salespeople, all the way from lead, prospect to opportunity and close, which is the main piece of what we're going to focus on today. 8x8, as you know, is a company that is really focused about cloud communication. The beautiful thing about that is the simplicity of deployment, the simplicity of flexible agility of your company, where you can add seats, you can add deployments, you can add endpoints, and you can empower people either through mobile, physical, or at home. And the beautiful thing about us as a company is we really want to partner with customers like yourselves in order to help you do everything embedded into your business communication, which is a big piece of what we are going to show you now. So what is it typical sales leaders, operational sales folks, and people that are caring about sales progression, what do we want from our salespeople and sales folks? Well, the counterbalance is usually, I want our salespeople to sell more often, and bigger, right? Bigger wallet share, bigger ARPU, bigger deal sizes. But the counter to that is salespeople sometimes say, yeah, I'm doing it. I want to spend my time on selling and not recording the selling, not telling you what I did, not going to reports and sheets and Excels and every week reviews and all that all the time. I want to just sell versus get information, record it, do things, and I want to have productive tools to do it. There's a bit of a counter between the two of them. It's either this focus on or that. It's very hard to do the balance between the two. And what we want to do is help your salespeople actually do them both effectively by eliminating the tedious tasks of doing something that they don't want to do. They just want to sell. As we know, customer relationship is critical in order to drive sales forward. What suffers when you don't have a good communication between customers and your salespeople, what is the ongoing and continuous communication over time, is the relationship suffers. And a way for you to actually, what you would like to do, as we all know, is have constant engagement across the entire customer lifecycle journey, whether they're an early stage prospect, whether an opportunity, whether it's the meeting with the technical folks, whether it's the meeting with the procurement, finance, the technical dive, the security, doesn't matter where it is, and at the same time align your sales process, sales cycle to that, so that you're able to drive these as a continuous cycle and always empower your salespeople to be effective communicators and always on approach for your customer in order to accelerate the sales cycle. When you do this, you're able to actually do the 1 + 1 = 3, but not have to balance information giving versus just pure selling and customer engagement, but have visibility into it and give your salespeople time back while managers are able to see full transparency of information on that. And this is where Virtual Office for Salesforce really comes into play and enables you to do that. So let's look at what this solution can actually do for you. Think about Sally is a salesperson under your team. Sally is a very efficient person and wants to be always connected with her customers, either from the office, at home, or on the go. Her one-stop shop tool or sales business tool is usually the CRM system. For her example, it is going to be Salesforce. She wants to go in there and get a lead, get an opportunity, see the contact number, call them, log it in afterwards, be able to create a new contact that she got from a lead, understand who she wants to contact, and have a one-stop shop for everything. When she calls her customer, she also wants to be able to receive back a call and immediately be able to do it from where she is, versus having two screens or two different applications. One of them could be a phone, mobile, tablet, whatever it is. The other one would be this business application called CRM, and she's not able to do them both. What if she could actually do that and be able to reach out and receive every interaction from a customer on this business tool, which would have communications embedded into that? What if then you can take all of your reps on the left-hand side here, connected with all of the customers that are using this one-stop shop way, which is embedded into your CRM, and then be able to see full analytics on that and understand who's communicating, who's not communicating, are they reaching the customers, has this customer been touched, and have a full view of what is going on with transparent communication between your salespeople, whether the early stage prospect, opportunity, or wherever they are, and the end customer or the prospect, which is what your focus is. What if then you could be, either the sales management position or operation focus, able to go deep and understand by rep what stage are they in, how many calls have they made, who is making more calls, are these calls effective, and so forth. Are they able to see the revenue? It's not really good. Or do they need help? Do I need to help them interact? Do they have the right lead contact information, and so forth? You can look at an overall team and then an individual rep himself. Is she spending or he spending an effective time reaching out to customers and engaging them, or do they not have the right way to do that or the right enablement to do that? And the third, very important, coming up soon, is how do I look at a specific account? Well, going back with the Seinfeld theme, Vendelay Industries, for example, what is up with Vendelay? Have we reached them enough? Have we talked to the champions? Have we talked to this prospect IT people? Have we talked to these prospects procurement? Have we talked to the manufacturing people, distribution people? How are we engaging this customer over time? What status is the relationship in? And not just looking at dollar opportunity. What if you could do all of this and then empower everything you need to take a step from this current sales process, which is lack of transparency into your lead, and make it better? So a lot of times today, for myself as well as a marketeer, I see that we got a lead at this trade show, or maybe inbound for somebody who picked up his hand and downloaded a white paper on content syndication, or whatever it could be. The lead was passed through the right SLA to the account person, the account executive or the sales rep, and the person did not follow up because maybe they were traveling, maybe they were focused on another customer, and it got kind of like you fell between the seats and you're not able to see exactly, was this person contacted, did we reach out to them, was it tracked, and do we know what the status is? Day 60, we look at this and we see that we think that the prospect wasn't interested, but we don't know how many times we actually contacted them in person physically, because the lack of communication ability to look at the communication track record and activity logging of all the calls, all the contacts that were done with this customer. However, there's a better way to do it. And I'm going to hand off to one of the two smart people here, Daryl, to really show you what your future sales process could look like. Daryl, go ahead.
Thanks, Alon. So one of the things that we've done here with this product offering is we've taken a number of capabilities from the 8x8 suite and we've applied them to sales users. And so the flow that you see here, and Alon's been talking about it, is really the flow of opportunities as they go through your sales organization, and your sales folks work with those opportunities to try and close them. Obviously, communication is the core of what you're trying to do there in terms of communicate with customers, but tools around that communication that help you integrate into your information systems like Salesforce can help. So the flow that you see here is that we've got a sales development rep that qualifies the lead, that gets passed to an account executive who contacts the prospect. During this communication, what we've done is we've embedded a integration into Salesforce that allows you to easily take the call log details and the notes and push those into Salesforce along with the call details. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a second. I'm going to demo that. Another feature that we're adding this quarter is the ability to automatically log calls from a mobile device or from our mobile application into Salesforce. So now if you've got reps that are in the field and out, waiting in line for a taxi or at the airport, and they get a call from a customer, if there's a match inside Salesforce for that customer number, we'll give the rep the opportunity to take some notes and right then and there, maybe even using Siri, and then push that information into Salesforce. So now they don't have to spend as much time at the end of the week doing paperwork, trying to capture all those logs and push them into Salesforce. And then the final piece that we have that Jeff will be doing a demo of is the analytics inside Salesforce. So we've taken our call detail records and we've mashed those up with Salesforce information. So now you can not only see what your team's doing from a call perspective, but see who they were talking to, what accounts they were interacting with, the stage of the opportunity, and how much time they're spending at each stage in the opportunity life cycle. And we'll show that to you in a demo as well. So just to briefly cover some of the features of the integration before I do the demonstration, we did revamp this integration significantly over the course of the last quarter, and some of the things that we've done is we've improved the logging. We've made it easier for reps to log calls and to add information around the context of that call at any point during the interaction, either during the call or after the call, and I'll show you how that works. We've streamlined the workflow. We've added a call recording link inside of Salesforce, so now you can see the actual call that took place based on permissions in Salesforce. If you have the permissions to see the link, then you'll see it. And you can download the call recording file and listen to it for coaching purposes and things like that. And we've also enhanced the collaboration, so it's easier than it's ever been to see the presence of other employees within the business, chat with them, and maybe even transfer the call. And if you're an organization that has leads that are flowing through quickly, maybe getting qualified by a sales development representative and then getting passed to an AE, it can be a big benefit in terms of streamlining that whole process and making the customer experience as smooth as possible and closing the business as quickly as possible from your perspective. So with that, I'm going to jump into screen share, and bear with me for just a second here while I pull up another browser. All right, so I'm going to ask the team if they can see the screen that I'm looking at currently.
Looks good, Daryl.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So this is the new and improved Salesforce integration. You can see it here on the left-hand side inside Salesforce. This is the classic or tab view or tab version of Salesforce. This is the one that most of you are probably using at the moment. We are currently developing this plugin inside of the Lightning view, so it's happening in the current sprint. So that should get pushed into production here in the next 3 to 4 weeks and be available for anybody that's thinking about making the move to Lightning the Lightning experience, as you may know from looking at videos or possibly going to Dreamforce, has the Salesforce integration in a kind of a console type of a mode. So it's a significant improvement in the way that Salesforce is handling these live phone interactions. So I'm going to go ahead and place a phone call in so we can see what happens when we get an inbound call from a customer. So here's the call coming in. You can see that we got multiple matches from Salesforce. So I'm going to accept this call. So I'm now communicating with the customer. I used the answer phone button that was there to accept that call. And if I'm wearing a headset, then it's super simple for me to just be communicating with the customer. We did get multiple matches inside of Salesforce. So I'm going to click here on the Assign tab, and I can see all the matches that we got. So I'm talking to Shaggy. I'm talking to Freddie. There we go. So I've now assigned this. You can see the multi-match label that was up here at the top has been changed to Freddie. So this is now going to log all the call statistics from this call and the notes from the call right into Salesforce. I can take notes while I'm on the call. And at the end of the call, when I end it, I can continue to take notes. And I just hung up the phone there. So now I can continue to take notes. I can set the call disposition. I can create a follow-up during the call or after the call. So if I want to set up my next task inside Salesforce, this is a task. Like say I want to prep for a pricing conversation with that customer, I can do that. I can set the date. I can set the priority to high or low, and I can save that. So I've now created a follow-up. I can save my notes here, and I've created a log for that specific call activity. Tasks that are pending are open tasks, and call logs are closed tasks. That's something that occurred. If I go and I take a look at Freddie's contact information, you can see here's the call that we just did. A great call, and here's the call notes that I added. We've got the start time, the end time, and the duration. Here's the call recording URL. So because I have permissions to see this field inside Salesforce, if I had recorded that call, I'd have a link here, and I could click on that link, and it would automatically download the call recording to my computer, and I could listen to it. A couple other features that I want to cover off briefly, and then I'll pass off to Jeff to show you the analytics. This is the recent call log. So these are all the calls that have taken place. I can call people back. I can click here and immediately be launched back into the notes-taking section. The unworked section is something that we added. And basically what's going on here is if I haven't had a chance to capture notes for previous calls, the calls show up in this area. And what that does from a rep perspective is it reminds me to come in here and add the notes so that my account teams can stay synchronized with what I'm doing when I communicate to the customer, and so my management has visibility into what I've done. So it's just a simple reminder to the sales rep that these are the ones they haven't gotten to yet. And that happens all the time because calls are busy, and you might get multiple calls that come in back to back, and you don't have time to capture the notes. This makes it easier to go in and do that. And then from a collaboration standpoint, we have we're pulling in Salesforce and 8x8 contacts here. So if I type in Jeff's name, I get Jeff, and I can chat with Jeff, and I can transfer calls to Jeff, and it makes it really easy for me to just bring Jeff into a conversation with the customer. And we can do merged calls, or you can do transfer calls, whisper or blind. It's really up to the user to decide how they want to do that, but there's a lot of flexibility here. Okay, I think with that, I'm going to hand off to Jeff.
Great, thanks, Daryl. Hey, Daryl, I did see we had a question regarding Lightning. Do you want to answer it now, or would you prefer to answer it after the call? Probably after the call.
I spoke to it a bit already, Jeff, but yeah. So Lightning is something that we're looking at over the course of what we're looking at this sprint. So hopefully within the next 3 or 4 weeks, we'll be able to say we're ready for Lightning and running inside of Lightning. The team's digging into it, and like I said, it'll create I think a much better user experience for the rep inside Lightning. So if your organization is thinking about going to Lightning, we'll be supporting it very, very soon. So it shouldn't be any problem there.
Okay. So transitioning over, thanks, Daryl, for the lightning update. We have gotten this question a lot, and we're looking forward to moving there. Regarding analytics, I've been using Salesforce for about 8 years at 2 different companies, and now this third one. And one of the things that I always saw is with Salesforce is it's really good at saying, like, this is what's going on with this customer in the sense of, like, where's the opportunity, how much is it worth? But where it falls down is about activity. My experience has been that you really can't trust the Salesforce history. It's suspect. And it comes down to just simple human error, where salespeople have a lot of responsibilities on their shoulders. They have to call a number of accounts. And is it worth their time to log that they just made a voicemail? Voicemails don't matter. But, when a deal goes south, and especially if it's worth a lot of money, sometimes people will say, hey, were you calling that customer? And what happened? And if they don't log those voicemails, well, then it shows that, well, no one really knows. And then you have to trust your salesperson. And there's always been this disconnect between the call activity that you see people doing when you walk around and you see people at their desk making phone calls, and then what are those business results? And so what we wanted to do here at 8x8 is answer that problem of matching essentially call activity with business results. Now, the way that we do that, here's a larger way to frame those questions is that if you can't answer the basic questions of, like, who made the most number of phone calls or who spent the most number of time on the calls, it's harder to ask better business-centric questions of who's calling our forecast commit customers, who's calling our big deals, et cetera. And I'll demonstrate more of that during the demonstration. So the way, and this is interesting, this is a slide that I had put together where someone had asked me to compare Salesforce history with 8x8 call detail record history. And this is really where the idea of bringing these worlds came together. We had a deal, and I had done research on the deal. It was with a company called Okta, and I had looked at 4 months worth of call activity based on what said it was in Salesforce. And this is by a sales rep who was very diligent, and she always kept good notes. And I saw that over these 4 months that she had logged 4 total calls, and there were 6 emails back and forth. And what I paid attention to was how Okta had progressed in the pipeline when the stage changed. Because stages never change lightly. There's always some sort of activity that means that you can move the stage from qualified to worthy of a demonstration to talking pricing, etc. And what was weird is when you plotted the stage change relative to the activity, you saw these strange gaps. I mean, there should be some sort of communication, but there wasn't. And so then I went into the call detail records that 8x8 has, and these are 100% accurate because whenever a phone is picked up and dialed and received and talk time occurs, we record it. It's what we do. And so these call detail records are 100% accurate. And during that, 2 weeks in November, I saw that there was actually 14 calls and 50 minutes worth of talk time. Now, this salesperson, I want to stress, she's very diligent, but she didn't think it was worth her time to go in there and record this information. Yet, it gives a much clearer idea of what was going on with this major account. And that's the genesis for how we wanted to move forward. So how do we do it? How is virtual office Salesforce Analytics different? At a very, very high level, and this is the most important thing to remember, is that we start with our call detail records as history. So it's 100% accurate. The next thing that we do is we look and we match the 8x8 calls with information that we have in your local Salesforce instance, such as we look at, if we see a phone number and it was to a contact, well, then we say, okay, what account does this contact belong to, and what are the opportunities associated? And then we associate the call with the opportunity, and we start having a business level understanding of the call activity. We then bring the information together, and it's really important, one of the things that drives me nuts with Salesforce is how, and this has to go back to the architecture of where the company was and all that other jazz, but it's how it separates information that's important for leads from information that's important for accounts. And it really makes it hard if you have one salesperson who's calling leads and opportunities because you have to look in at least 2 different reports. And so that was like one of the big things when I sat down with our engineers, is like, hey, I want a unified understanding of all call activity, regardless if it's to leads or opportunities or accounts or contacts. I want it all together. And you know what? On top of that, I want to look at internal calls, and I want to look at calls that aren't to anyone in Salesforce. Let's have a big understanding. And then what we did is we then brought that information together into team analytics and employee analytics. And this is what I'd like to demonstrate now. Now, can I get confirmation that everyone can see my analytics page? Let's see, what am I looking at?
Yep. Looks
great.
Good.
Okay, so a little bit of a lag. So this is the team analytics that we developed, and we rolled it out internally at 8x8, and then we rolled it out to some beta users who've all been very, very helpful in giving us feedback. And the way it functions really quickly is that you have your schedule up here, the query period, and you open up the schedule icon and you select the dates. And I'm going to assume that my name is John Candeloro, who's a really effective team leader for sales at 8x8, and I picked the first 2 weeks of September. I said, hey, what was my team doing? So I go over here to the conversation direction pie chart, and I can see that the vast majority, 69% of all the calls that were made were outbound, and that 29% of all the calls made were inbound. And that's about right. That's what I want for my team. And I also do not want people spending time on internal calls. That's just a waste of time. In general, HR, we got to do that stuff. But I'm just saying that, like, this is good. It's a nice small 2% sliver. Now, in total, during those first 10 days in September, how many calls occurred? About 3,000. That's pretty good. How many talk time in terms of hours on the phone? 189. That feels good. Now, what were the business results? So during those 2 weeks, essentially 2 weeks of call activity, how much revenue was generated? And what we're doing is we're matching the phone calls to contacts with accounts with active opportunities, and we're adding up all the closed deals. And so we had this much amount of demo revenue. And then we also, using the same process, we looked at the number of closed deals and the number of leads converted. And depending on your business process, this could be really good or really bad. It depends on, this is at the beginning of September, and I know for a fact that one of the things that people are supposed to be doing is converting leads, because you want to start pushing people into the pipeline so that you start pursuing and closing opportunities later. Now, that may be bad or good. I don't know. So I'm going to go down here to the team details table, and what this does is it breaks down the information of who was doing what. And so I have everyone's name over here. And when we open this up for customers to use, the first thing they always do is they go over here. Who made the most number of phone calls? Okay, here's this guy named Sam Rising. He's on the phone a lot. And then down at the other end are some people who weren't making as many phone calls as I thought. So what about total talk time? Well, that is Kevin Legwig. Okay, good, Kevin. And then what about revenue associated with those phone calls? Once again, you can start seeing that revenue is very closely associated with the number of total calls. We also can look at the number of closed deals and leads converted. Now, this is a look at all the calls made. A lot of people are saying, you know what, I just care about outbound phone calls. So we have a filter over here, and it says call directions. You know what, I just care about outbound calls. The audience, you know what, I don't care about internal calls. So let's filter out and just say outbound. We also have something called talk time, and this allows you to remove voicemails. Because you can say, you know what, you're not allowed to leave here until you make 50 phone calls a day. Like, I don't want to be so draconian, but I have seen call situations like that. And one of the things is what was expressed there, that you made 50 phone calls or you had 50 conversations. Two totally different things, and you can filter that out. Now, in this business use case, what I cared about was outbound phone calls, and I want specifically calls to leads. So what I do is I then update the filter, and then we reassemble the data, and we strip out all the things that I don't care about. I just care about outbound phone calls to leads. So the conversation direction chart just went to just outbound. That's good. Now, over here in the sales category chart, this is where we start breaking things down by classifying it into different categories of sales. So here's the phone calls to leads. So I can see that my team made 176 phone calls during those 10 days in September to 114 leads for a total of what? Total talk time of 3 hours? Okay, that's not good. I expect more phone time dedicated to leads at the beginning of the quarter, because that's the business process. We want people to start really put their time and effort into closing, converting leads. So that's not really so good. So let me see who is doing the most. Sarah Starr, I care about you. You're supposed to be a star, but you only made 4 phone calls. Let's find out what that was about. So now we're drilling down from a team level down to an employee level, and we're looking at specifically who did Sarah call. Okay, so let's see, outbound, external leads. There's Sarah, nice photo pulled from Salesforce. Okay, so we see that 13 calls and only 13 minutes on the phone. That's not so great. Now, who was she calling? Well, this is the information pulled from Salesforce. We have the name of the leads. Sometimes they appear just as phone numbers if that's all we have. We have the titles that are filled out. We also can see how many calls that she made. So, and your business process may be where you need to call leads at least 3 or 4 times before you can disqualify it. So she could be calling these leads a lot more. A lot of them are just single times phone calls. And also you can see the talk time. A lot of these, it looks like voicemail messages that we could strip out. You also have the most recent that you can see over there. Now, you know what? I don't really care so much about just outbound and external. I want to explore more about what is Sarah doing with her time. So I'm going to remove the leads and the filters. We're going to update and pull out all the call activity that she did during those 10 days in September. This looks better. 193 phone calls, that's what I expect. 10 hours on the phone, that's still a little light by how I judge things. But I have a sense of what she's doing with her time. That's this chart up here. You can see that she made 13 phone calls to leads. She's also, looks like she's getting sucked into relationship management, probably support issues. So she had 78 calls to 19 businesses up here, total people or businesses. And so I have to say this does concern me. She's getting pulled way too much into service issues and not really spending time working opportunities that are in the pre-forecast pipeline or working best case opportunities or commit opportunities. Her closed isn't bad, and that's good. Omitted, that's fine. And then what's key here is the not found in Salesforce, okay? And then there's also internal. We didn't really mention this, but there's this statistic on the other page that we like called customer focus, called 78%. What that does is we look at all the calls that she made to people or businesses found in Salesforce divided by all calls that she made. So, for example, if she made a grand total of 193 calls, 78% of them can be found to contacts in Salesforce, or in other words, 150. Splitting it on the other side, you could say that 43 were not. And that number may be fine depending on your business process, but you really don't want the customer focus dropping really, really low, because essentially that means your salesperson is not keeping Salesforce up to date, or you have a very different problem on your hand where the salesperson is like calling their family, their friends, or whatever, pizza departments, whatever. You just got to be careful with that. So this statistics gives you a quick eye opener. So coming back to her activity, I look down here in the customer call summary page. Let's expand that to 50 at least. And we look at everyone that she's called and how many times she's called. So we've ranked it by total calls. So she's really 10 calls to Camos, and she's really trying to run that one down. I can see who she's spending the most time on the phone with, and that is this phone number there. We don't know what that is. I could call it with 8x8 by clicking on it, but let's kind of move back towards the demo. And then you can use the search filter to help explore. Let's say like I want to look at one particular customer, such as Green Bay Organic. So I can then find them right there. Or I could do a search on like how many people with a CEO title has she called during this 2 weeks. Okay, that looks good. You can also do a filter if you like, where like I want to look at all the deals that she closed. And so I can look at the phone numbers and who she called. You'll notice that this one looks funny with the funny font. What that shows us is that we see that she's calling this number, but the phone number has matches to 3 different contacts in Salesforce. So something is wrong with the Salesforce record for this contact. And from experience, I can see that there's 2 different Leahs, which means that Leah exists twice in Salesforce, and that's really messy if you have a lot of that problem. Also over here, we see that there's the funny font appears. If you click on that, it shows us that she actually has 2 opportunities open, both in the one stage, that's fine, both the same close date. And that may be fine or not, depending on how you run your business. But otherwise, if we don't see the funny font, then we know that there's one opportunity at Western League with the amount associated of 145, and that looks good. So let's remove the one. And I'm trying to think what else we can show you in terms of looking at what Sarah's done. I'd say that the next thing would be like, how are you spending your time? And why don't we chart some of these calls? So I'll like do a quick plot to Cam Motion, to Western League, perfect timing, this unknown phone number, and these two right here. So now what I'm doing is I said to myself, I'm like, what is Sarah doing with her time for these 5 or 6 different companies? So we're going to plot them up here. And so what we see, and here, let me close this window. We can see all her call activity. And so we have the names of the different people that she's called, not found in Salesforce as those funny numbers. And then we plotted it over time down here, and we've actually color coordinated the dots, the bubbles, to show what stage or what state that phone call was. So for example, if it's yellow, it means she had a call to a lead. If it's oranges, then it's just a call to an account. And then if there's an opportunity associated, then things get interesting with the pink, the blue to the green. And so we can see that she has been very, very active in Salesforce. Making phone calls to customers. If you hover over these bubbles, and the size of the bubble, you notice there are different sizes. The size of the bubble is relative to the talk time associated. But you can also hover and see, okay, this is the contact, this is the call date, and this is the call duration. Other things that you can do within Salesforce, if you wanted to, let's say, like Cam Motion, if I want to find out more information, you just click on it, and you're still within the Salesforce environment, and boom, you have more information about the one particular account. You can do the same thing with the contact name as well. And so, in coming back, let's go back to the table. The heart of what we're trying to do here with the analytic is to make it easy to understand how sales call activity relates to business results. And then, in terms of the business results, to make it easy to understand, are you calling leads? Are you calling opportunities? How much talk time is involved? How many calls did you make? And who did you call? So that covers this side of the analytic. I'd like to pass the baton back to Daryl or Alon.
I think Daryl for continuing with the slides and looking at the blind spot. So let's go back to the slides, please.
Okay.
Great. So we actually are in the Q&A section. We have reached the end of the slide deck. So it would be a great time if you've got any questions about what you've seen today in terms of either one of the demos or the material that we talked about from Alon. Would love to take a look and see what sort of questions you might have. So one of the questions that I see from the audience is this solution a better fit for marketing and inside sales activity or longer, more high-touch sales cycles? So that's a great question. It actually fits well depending on your business and your needs in all 3 of those environments. And obviously the solution is covering tools for the reps to become more efficient and also analytics for management to be able to gain insights into what's happening with teams. Here at 8x8, we have all 3 of those types of teams using these tools. And the reps like it because it makes it easier for them to just focus on the conversations they're having. The managers like it because they're able to gain insights into what's going on. And it is interesting to take a look at the types of interactions that occur in a marketing or a sales development team, which tend to be obviously very transactional and very quick. Takes 6 or 7 times to calling a potential prospect before you actually get a phone call going with that prospect, and that means you're making a lot of phone calls, right? And those phone calls aren't lasting very long because you're getting voicemail or you're getting sometimes it's bad numbers and some of the lead data, et cetera, and before you reach out and actually talk to a person. Whereas for a field organization that's doing business to business and interactions, those conversations can go quite a bit longer and can contain multiple people for conference calls and things like that. But the tool provides insights the analytics tool that Jeff talked about provides insights across all those 3 teams, and the integration tool speeds up and makes it simpler to log all the notes consistently into Salesforce and focus on the customer conversation. So I hope I answered that question.
Thanks, Daryl. I think that was great. As we alluded in the beginning, part of this whole sales acceleration, optimization, productivity solution is the biggest piece is this, what we talked about today. And we are enhancing that with the more automated, predictive capabilities of enabling salespeople, whether they're telesales or high volume, more automatic need to do outbound outreach, with the second piece of the solution that is coming later this year, and we will invite you to learn more information, and that comes along, and we're eager to get customers into beta as well that are looking to do high volume, more transactional but important telesale, telemarketing activities. So very eager to show you guys that when that becomes open. While we go into one more question, I think we're going to run out of time, lots of good questions, and I'm going to have Daryl or Jeff, any one of you jump in. So a bit more talk about the activities that are automatically recorded. What gets automatically recorded into CRM, Salesforce capability, when everything around the plugin and the integration actually is leveraged?
So the activities that we're logging are a task, so that the human inputted pieces of data are a subject, the comments on the particular call, so what was the call about, and the call disposition or the call results field. So those are the 3 that a person puts in. Then behind the scenes, we're putting in the start time of the call, the end time of the call, the duration of the call, the call recording URL, so that you can link to that call recording URL, and the direction of the call as well. And then one other thing to just kind of hit on, because I think it's an important thing to keep in mind, and Jeff covered it, but in terms of the analytics, those are not running off of the tasks that are being put in by the reps into Salesforce. We're actually pulling the call records from the call detail records, and doing that eliminates the uncertainty in the analytics that can occur when you're relying on people to put every call that they've taken into Salesforce. We're actually going to the source of the truth, as it were, the call detail records, which is what we use for billing customers for phone calls. How long did the call take, and who was it between, and was it a local call or an international call? We're using that as the source of truth, and so that is an important thing to keep in mind with those analytics, because they are going to be more accurate than anything you're going to run based on tasks in Salesforce where you're requiring a human to take some sort of an action.
Fantastic, Daryl. I think we have time just for one more point, because this has been a very good and deep webinar on the capabilities. So if I'm a customer or prospect and I want to get this started, what is my next step? What can I do in order to go ahead and do this with what I have right now, and what is my call to action? How can I actually leverage you guys or somebody to go ahead with this? Do I just go to my account manager? Can I see additional demos if you need?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think you answered it very quickly there. Reach out to your account manager. They'd be happy to talk to you about the new offering that we have, the new sellable item that includes these capabilities, and they're equipped with support teams that can do demonstrations and tell you everything you want to know about how to use this and how to leverage it for your sales teams.
Wonderful. Daryl and Jeff, thank you so much for very insightful and deep conversation and sharing a lot of information.
Cool.
Thank you everybody for joining our webinar. This was stellar. I really appreciate everything that we shared. The follow-up is we will send you follow-up material after this webinar, information and a way for you to see more, a live demo if you want to get more into the weeds and how to test it. And we're looking for customers to come and help us really become great adopters of this, as this is a fully blown product today. Great information. Thank you everybody for facilitating. Yeah. And we'll see you guys with customer advocacy webinars very soon, and stay tuned for additional information to be delivered.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alon. Thanks, everybody, for attending.